Hello YouTube, what's up, it's Dylan. If you watched some skateboarding videos from me over the past year, you've heard me talk about my injury a little bit. But until this month, I did not know how bad it was. I'm making this video not only to chronicle like the past year of my life, but also as a kind of learning experience for everybody watching. Because really, I could not have made any more mistakes than I did in my path of recovery. I made so many mistakes, and just one thing different could have helped me realize how bad I actually was. And this whole past year would have been a lot different, and I might be in a better place now. I'll tell the whole story and give my advice throughout this whole video. And I think the story has 3 clear sections to it that kind of define how I was feeling during that time. I'll start by going back 1 year and 1 month to the initial injury and my first response to it. June 28th, 2021. I remember the date very well because it was at a skate competition. It was my very first run, and at the end of it, I jumped off a ramp, got about 2 to 3 feet in the air, so it wasn't super high. I was nervous, so I was going way too fast onto this bump, and I tried a trick that I had not practiced at all. I threw a kickflip off this ramp, and the shape of it makes it so the board goes back a little bit, so that's what it did. The board just left me, and I was going about 50 miles per hour probably. I landed on 1 foot, and I just straight stopped. Hyperextended my knee a lot, and it twisted a little bit too and gave in a little bit. It was my first piece of important advice. I had this tendency to land on one leg sometimes when I would miss a trick, sometimes from like head high almost. For years I've had pain in that knee, so it was never good. If you do a sport where you jump a lot, make sure you land on 2 feet always. For me with skateboarding, it always felt weird to kind of make my body force myself to land with 2 feet. But if I landed with 2 feet on that day, I would not have had this injury. So yeah, right when it happened, it wasn't an extreme amount of pain, but it took me down on the ground for like a minute or two. I was thinking about trying to keep skateboarding, but I took like 20-minute break, and I realized there was no way. I even did some deep squats afterwards, trying to see how I felt, and those didn't even hurt that much. And I'll never forget the feeling of trying to walk after that. My knee felt like it just totally transformed into a different knee. Every time I put pressure down onto it, and something inside would feel like it'd move, and also the whole knee felt like it went like that. It'd give out backwards and then push forward again. That was a horrible feeling. So yeah, if you have an injury on a joint and it feels like it's unstable after you hurt it, you should definitely be looking out for a tear of a ligament or something. And then the next day I couldn't walk. For the next 2 weeks, my knee was stuck. It had swollen up, so I couldn't bend it backwards at all. And the sad thing is, I did see a doctor for the next 3 weeks. I don't know why she was acting so sure that I wasn't torn, because everything that I was experiencing was exactly what you get when you look up ACL tear in Google. And the only reason I went to that doctor was because my mom told me not to go to the one I wanted to go to, which is an orthopedic place. So if you have a place that you know you want to go to, make sure you go to that one when you have a severe injury. Because again, I think if I had gone to the place I wanted to go to, they would have recognized all the symptoms I was having. Going to that doctor was my first big mistake, because if I had gone to the right doctor, they would have recognized what I was going through. It took me at least a month to be able to walk normally again. 3 to 4 months until I felt like I was able to skateboard again. And then sometimes just walking, my knee would randomly give out, hyperextend backwards again. Those were both very clear signs that my knee was totally unstable and something was torn in it. During the rest of that year, the following winter, I kept trying to skateboard, which was a big mistake because I wasn't functioning normally. I just kept trying to power through because that's what I've always done with injuries. One thing that would have made it better was I should have been working out on the side, but I wasn't really working out, truly. That would have at least made it so that my knee gave out less, because it was giving out all the time doing physical activities. Now I think of this as the second section of this story. I took a full break from skateboarding November through January because it just wasn't getting better. I shouldn't have been skateboarding the whole time, and I should have been having more medical treatment. I tried to skateboard again in January. I didn't get hurt, but I realized I wasn't getting healthy at all. So finally, in February, went to physical therapy. And again, I don't know why these professionals couldn't recognize that I had torn something. It had been 7 months at this point since the injury, and I was not even close to normal. They said my knee was unstable, and I was in pain constantly. Of course, it's also my fault for not recognizing all this. I was holding on too much to the idea that I just had to get better, that nothing was actually torn. But this is a story of mistakes, so I was doing everything wrong. Physical therapy actually did help a lot though. I have to give them the credit there. Went to it for about a month and a half to 2, and by the end of it I was skateboarding. End of winter, beginning of spring this year, I started to skateboard kind of normally. I was only jumping about to like below knee height for sure. And throughout the spring I got a lot stronger, and I kept jumping a little bit higher. And so by the end of the spring I thought I was pretty much recovered. I just had to keep getting a little stronger. And what's really bad is that at the end of the spring was the best skateboarding I've done. This year is still the most tricks I've learned since I started skateboarding. And then finally at the beginning of June, I started to focus on jumping higher again. And that's kind of when I realized that things were going wrong. I would jump things about thigh high and it'd feel just wrong. Even though I never twist on my knee again on a high jump, it just always felt a little bit off. And so I think I'd gone as strong as I would without an ACL, which for me was skating a force there at not too fast, but going about medium speed, and doing tricks that took a little bit to land, but I would make sure that when I bailed, I landed perfectly centered. There were 2 competitions coming up at the beginning of summer. The first one was first day of summer, go skateboarding day, and the second one was the same week, like 4 days later on Saturday. And at both these competitions, my knee gave out inwards. The The first competition, the first event, was a high jump over a bar, and I was able to jump up to about like rib cage to middle chest. At that point, I was going so fast and going so high that my knee finally did just give out inwards. It didn't really hurt, it didn't swell up, it just gave out, and I knew I couldn't jump that high again. My mistake that day was I kept skateboarding the competition, even though at the beginning of it, I got hurt. And so the days leading up to the next competition, I took off, and then I started skateboarding again that next competition. I did a lot of skateboarding throughout that competition, and I made it almost the whole way without getting hurt. Then the last event was jumping over a trash can from a ramp. I was trying to land a varial flip, and one time I landed primo on my back leg, and so all my weight went on my front leg, and it gave out again. And that's when I realized I need to go back to a doctor. All this intense physical activity shows that you can have a very serious injury and still act almost normal and believe that you're fine. Make sure if you have consistent pain for something that you get it checked out and you try to fully understand what it actually is. And finally, section 3 of the story, realization of the truth. June 28th, 2022, exactly 1 year after injury, was when I had the MRI. The previous week, about June 24th or 25th, I had gone to the orthopedic place that I wanted to go to in the first place. And then a couple days after MRI, I had another appointment with a doctor. And that's when I figured out that the whole year, I had a torn ACL and partially torn meniscus, and possibly a little damage to some other cartilage. This all came as a little bit of a shock. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting all that stuff at one time. I've met with a couple surgeons now. Surgery is scheduled for 5 days from now, Thursday, August 4th. It took me 1 year to get the full medical help I needed to get in the first place, and then another month to get the surgery that is supposed to help me get a full recovery. That's what I've been going through for the past year. What I really want is for people not have to go through what I did and to be a lot more healthy and aware than I was throughout all this. So I'll conclude with the main lessons and advice that I want everybody to leave this video with. First, make sure if you're doing an intense sport that you're treating your body like you want to do it for the long term. If you're jumping, make sure you land with both feet on the ground at the same time and knees slightly bent. And do additional working out instead of just the activity you do. Next, make sure you're getting proper medical treatment with the exact kind of doctor you think you need. And then once you're seen by a first place and you feel like you haven't figured it fully out, you can keep going to new places. Injuries that will heal on their own won't take that long to get better, and they'll consistently get better instead of having points where it gets a lot worse. Third, if you're hurt, don't act like you're not hurt trying to get better. And either don't do the thing you got hurt doing or take it really slow as you slowly get better. My last piece of advice, always be thinking about your true condition. If you're healthy, think about how you could be healthier or things that might make you susceptible to an injury somehow. Make sure you get as aware as you can for all aspects of your life, not just this. We all have tons of things that we don't think about, and we all can get infinitely more aware. I really hope that somebody else learned from this. I know that I've made a lot of mistakes that I will look back on forever. I now have all this experience to look back on too as I'm getting better from my surgery and then living on afterwards. Thank you very much for watching. I hope things get better for you. Have a good day.